Hello, I'm Will Yeoman, and welcome to another episode of the Pod Well Travelled. Joined today, we've got a special guest today, occasional guest. It's motoring writer Olga de Moeller. Olga, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Will.
Lots to talk about today, particularly tow trucks. This was inspired by a recent experience of Olga's, and what happens when you have an accident, and what to do when confronted by, a reasonably large number of trucks all vying for your attention. We're also going to talk about spare tyres, which are almost extinct as far as I can gather, and that's a bit of a worry in the case of long-distance driving. So, Olga, tell us about your recent, not exactly pleasant experience.
No, it was not a pleasant experience. In fact, the experience with they were actually tilt tray trucks, not tow trucks.
Yes.
Was more unpleasant than the collision itself. It was a multi-car collision. I was stuck in the middle, and suddenly, out of nowhere, as though by some sixth sense, six trucks arrived, seemingly out of nowhere. And while you're sort of relieved when you see them, because they are masters in a crisis, they know exactly what to do. They take charge, which is great. But in this instance, I was not in my own car, and I needed to contact the people who knew what to do with this car, so that it didn't end up in a yard somewhere and then cause more problems down the line. The problem is that these tow truck drivers, and I won't be mentioning any names, is they present you with tow authorization forms.
Right.
They get all your details. I felt slightly pressured to sign this form. And on this form, the fee was $3,000 for a tow, a maximum fee in the Perth metro area, and it had an $88 daily storage fee. Now, tow truck authorisation forms now do need to have a maximum fee on them. That was not the case before. There's some reforms going through, or some reforms have gone through, and more are going through. So there does need to be a fee on there.
Okay.
However, this fee was a lot more than, for example, my insurer would charge, and I know my insurer would charge $300, including GST, for a tow. So the point of all this is that you need to know your tow rights. So you need to know that the first tilt tray truck or tow truck, usually it's a tilt tray truck on the scene, does not have the right to take your car. You decide who loads your vehicle onto a truck and where it is taken. And it can go to a repairer, your home, a storage yard, or wherever your insurer instructs. So ideally you call your insurer if you have a phone with you in the car and ask them who you should call.
Right.
And certainly you do this before you sign anything. Otherwise, contact someone you trust and get them to give you some instructions. If you don't know where to take your car or have your car towed, you can have it taken to your home as an option while you weigh up your options or what you want to do. So always make sure you familiarise yourself with your insurance policy. Also be aware that many insurers will only pay the reasonable cost of towing the vehicle from the scene of an incident to the nearest approved repairer. So in the instance where a tow authorisation form has $3,000 on it as a maximum worst case scenario fee, I really don't know what they would have charged.
Sure. Okay.
Your insurer is unlikely to pay this, especially if their going rate is, say, $300, including GST for a tow. Now, there's more reforms going through now, the other thing to bear in mind is that under the road traffic regulations, which do cover tow trucks, tow truck drivers must not pressure, force, persistently solicit or use any unfair means to get you, if you've been involved in an accident, to sign a form. That is a definite no-no. So there are rules in place, probably not enough at this stage. Also remember that main roads does have a number you can call. If you, say, have a crash or breakdown on the freeway, they may be able to move your car to a safer location. They have incident response vehicles, and that number is 138 138. So that's always good to just memorise or have in your phone. And the other tip from main roads is that, if you have been involved in an accident, ideally you should just stay in the car, put on your hazard lights, leave your seatbelt on rather than wander around outside it, especially in heavy traffic, because that's just dangerous. And of course, you do need to supply your name and various details to the other party. Often insurers will want the other party's licence details, home address, telephone number. So the more details you can get, the better, especially if you need to fill out an accident report form, and you do if the combined damage is more than $3,000 to all parties. So it's just worth having a little think about all of this, so that you're prepared in the event of an accident happening. And I mean, we're never prepared, but at least have in the back of your mind what you need to do.
No. Of course, as this is a travel podcast, we're thinking about a lot of people who are also touring, and I'm guessing the situation would be quite different if you broke down between here and Kalgoorlie, for example.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, yes.
For starters, you're probably not going to have a swarm or a flock of
you probably won't. No, you won't. So you may be relieved to get whoever turns up, but just read the fine print on the tow form. There should be, they have to have a fee on there, and query if it's a maximum fee. Query what they will charge you, because your situation may not be the worst case scenario.
Indeed, but you would be presumably talking about much longer distances.
You will, yes. Look,
say for example, the nearest whatever service station.
Tow truck drivers otherwise, or tilt tray drivers do otherwise have a call out fee. Off the top of my head, it's possibly something like $150, and then a kilometre rate. And I can't quite remember what the rate is per kilometre, but that is always an option as well. And obviously paying for a tow if you've broken down, it's not a crisis situation, so the fee will most likely be less than if you've been involved in a crash, because there's other things that come into it, like safety considerations, etc. So yes, there's always an option to call a tow truck company and get their quote for their call-out fee and their rate per kilometre to get your car to a destination where it can be fixed.
Okay, so let's move to talking about spares, spare tyres, spare wheels. And again, that has, I would imagine, quite serious repercussions for long-distance driving, because you talk about first the normal situation and how that would be fine for, say, the metro area.
Yes. Well, the reality today is that I don't know about most cars, but many cars do not come with a full-size spare tyre. Which is what you used to get, say, 30 years ago. Indeed. That was fairly stock standard. These days, you're more likely to get a space saver tyre, which is a skinny tyre that you can use. It'll get you out of a bind, but
it's certainly not designed for any sort of long distance driving, is it?
Designed. Look, you can only drive it at 80 kilometres per hour maximum speed. I've got one in my car.
Indeed.
It looks very unsightly. It's conspicuously skinny, and I do believe they have a limited life, so it's about 350 kilometres. After that, they need to be replaced. Otherwise, cars like BMWs tend to have, and some Mercedes tend to have run flat tyres. So they're designed to, again, be driven for a limited distance at reduced speed. Again, that's up to 80 kilometres at 80 kilometres an hour. And that's intended to be just enough to get you either home or to a repair shop. And pretty much what's happening when you're driving on a run flat is they have reinforced sidewalls. There's various techniques used. So you're driving on the sidewall, but in this instance, in every instance of a spare tyre, you do need to take it to a repair shop, have it taken off the wheel and inspected from the inside for any damage. You can also now get self-sealing tyres, which apparently, when there's a small puncture, there's some sealant encased in nylon under the tread encasing, and that just self-seals. But again, you can't rely on that. The tyre needs to be taken off the wheel and inspected. You can also get puncture repair kits, and that's intended for you to actually repair the tyre on the go by yourself. It comes with some sealant and a little compressor, and you repair it. But again, it needs to go to a repair shop to be checked. Interestingly, the Tesla Model 3 does not come with a spare tyre. It does not come with a puncture repair kit. It does not come with anything. You can buy a puncture repair kit for $125 online, but otherwise it comes with absolutely nothing, which I think is very, very risky if you're going out yonder somewhere, even down to Margaret River or Bunbury, because unexpected things happen.
So do you feel that this is a lot to do with markets and geographic location, and they're not really catering for countries like Australia, where there actually are quite vast distances between major centres?
I don't think they are catering for countries like, for Western Australia in particular, where there are vast distances, because if you're stuck even in Margaret River, if you're in Geraldton, if you're in Carnarvon, 80 kilometres may not get you anywhere. So
possibly a servo, but even if you get to a servo, they're going to have the right wheel, the right tyres.
Well, exactly. Yes. So it's very, very risky. Some cars still do have a full-size spare. Some variants of the Mitsubishi Outlander do, depending on the number of seats. 5-seater petrol models do have a full-size spare. The 7-seaters have a space saver. Kia Sportage, apparently from what I've worked out looking at the specs, all variants of the Kia Sportage do have a full-size spare. Similarly, the Hyundai Tucson. But the Toyota Camry has the 4-cylinder petrol model has a full-size spare, but hybrids have a temporary spare. So it does vary very much. The very popular Toyota RAV4, all models and trim levels have a space saver spare wheel, and you can only get a full-size spare with the hybrid GX variants. But I think it's very risky. It seems to be that the advice now is, well, you just call roadside assist. But if you haven't got a tyre and you've got a puncture, what's roadside assist going to do if they don't have the right tyre for your car? So no, I don't think this is catering for big open states like Western Australia.
Yeah, and again, interesting. Even some of those vehicles you mentioned, which would be popular touring vehicles as well. Even they're moving away from having a spare, which is extraordinary.
Look, it's partly cost. It's partly to reduce weight. Certainly in EVs, it's to reduce weight. So the advice is, if you're taking your Tesla Model 3 down south, up north, is to either buy a spare wheel or borrow one if you're a member of the Tesla Club of Western Australia.
Well, this is a totally random question. You may not know the answer to it, and it just occurred to me. But are there any moves from a technological perspective to look at tyres, wheels that just are puncture-proof?
Yeah, look, there's something called an airless tyre in the works. Bridgestone announced it in 2022, an airless non-pneumatic tyre for passenger vehicles. And apparently it builds on Bridgestone's air-free concept that was revealed in 2013, and it's sort of got a unique spoke design that's designed to support the weight of the vehicle, so you don't need to refill tyres with air. So currently there are airless tyres. I mean, you've seen them on your golf cart, various trailers, lawnmowers. So they're made of solid rubber or plastic.
Right.
This has to build on that because that's not suitable for a car passenger vehicle, obviously, because there's, you have to consider suspension and, bumps and things and rider comfort. But it looks as though these are about a decade away.
Okay.
But yes, that is in the works. But look, the advice otherwise is whenever you have a puncture, whether you've got a run flat or a self-sealing tyre or you've used a puncture repair kit, you need to take it in to a repair shop to be inspected. That is in the Australian standard. It needs to be inspected for internal damage.
Okay. Very clear. Well, Olga, thank you so much for joining us on the Pod Well Travel. It's always good to get your take on things motoring, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in the
Thank
future.
you, Will.